Hey everyone, Dr. Pat and I would personally like to invite you to join us in our Grow My Baby program. This is week-by-week pregnancy and birth information developed from our experience of helping more than 4,000 women grow and birth their babies. All our links are on our website, growmybaby.com.au.
The information in this podcast is provided for education and research information only. It is not a substitute for professional health advice.
If you're trying to get pregnant or you are pregnant and you feel a little bit overwhelmed by all you need to know, then this is the right podcast for you. Welcome to the show. I'm Brigid Maloney.
And I'm obstetrician Dr. Patrick Maloney. And this is The Kick, your expert-led podcast that delivers the essentials of growing a baby. Make sure you head to our website, growmybaby.com.au, to get some awesome free tools like our pregnancy knowledge checker to help you feel like you got this.
Welcome everyone, I'm Brigid Maloney and today we've got Chantelle Otten, who is a psycho-sexologist, and I'm going to get Chantelle to tell us all about what that is. And we're going to be talking about sex in pregnancy, which is often a topic that we don't talk about at all. I've never really seen any education about this myself. So I'm handing it over to you, Chantelle. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
I know, it's so good to be here. And Chantelle's just come from a flight and sat down and I'm just so thrilled that you're here. Thank you for giving up your time. I wondered if you could tell the audience who don't know you yet, I'm not sure where they've been, maybe under a rock, but for everybody that doesn't know you yet, could you just tell people who you are?
So I'm a sexologist. When we say psycho-sexologist, it's not like a psychotic sexologist. It's like I deal with the biggest sexual organ, which is the brain. I come from a psych background. And I run a really large sexology clinic in Nam or Melbourne. And we see people from all around Australia on telehealth and around the world. We do sex therapy there. We also have pelvic floor physios there. And for me, I'm really quite pleasure focused. I like to focus on education. I'm the author of a book which is for sex ed for adults. It's called The Sex Ed We Never Had. I guess like my job is to be a detective into people's sex lives and figure out, if they have a question or a concern or a challenge, how do we help them, and how do we find pleasure and fun and, reach some short-term and long-term goals to make their sex life better than it is.
I love that. So, Chantelle, we run a multidisciplinary clinic for women, and we've also just had boys that have gone through the secondary college education and have learnt about sex. But really the sex education that they get at a school level is about STIs, some period information and consent. But what do you think is missing in their sex education?
I think there's a lot missing when it comes to sex education, but I just think education in general around your body and, also if we're talking about boys and girls here, I like to talk in non-gender terms. So, I guess the fluidity of who you can be, gender-wise, sexually, personally, emotionally. And I think when we talk about holistic sex ed that is needed in school, well, yes, we have the comprehensive consent education. Is it comprehensive? I'm not sure, but we need to talk about affirmative consent and enthusiastic consent, discussion around boundaries and coercion and how consent can vary by context, but we also need to talk about things like anatomy lessons. I'm sure there's a lot of vulva owners that come to your clinic that have no idea what a vulva is, or what how to label their vulva or their anatomy, and likewise for a penis owner, do they know what a vulva is? A lot of people don't, including a lot of my friends as well. If we talk about education around menstruation, I think it's often minimal and it's still shrouded in, stigma and shame. And I think many programs don't really explore topics around menstrual health and options for, help when there is challenges with menstruation, fertility, variety of experiences as well. And I think it needs to be a discussion that's normalized for all genders. I think when it comes to pleasure-centered education, you know, as you said, sex education, it typically focuses on reproduction, prevention of sexually transmitted infections, contraception, and often we don't hear the word pleasure at all. And I think that what we need to talk about the fact is that sex should be pleasurable and can be pleasurable, and learning about it in diverse ways as an individualized approach. And, you know, how to ask for what you would like in the bedroom, how to explore what you would like, and how to promote healthier relationships with your own sexuality and kindness with the sexuality of others as well. And, you know, also inclusion of all sexual orientations and identity. I think sex ed is often quite heteronormative, which, you know, means women, men, boys, girls, and, you know, a man and a woman having sex. And a lot of the time, I think that excludes or marginalizes the experiences and needs of the LGBTQIA plus community as well. And I think we do have a long way to go when it comes to representation of all identities and orientations, and giving relevant information that fosters an inclusive environment that is pain-free, coercion-free, and pleasurable.
And so if we're taking that baseline and we're bringing it into a time in people's lives where they're either pregnant or have had a baby, what are the main reasons why they would come to see you as a sexologist?
There's many reasons. If we look at sexuality and the antenatal experience, people will come to me maybe when they're not having sex and they want to start a family. You know, they might come because there's some changes when it comes to their options for fertility, and how do they navigate fertility treatment and sexuality at the same time, because fertility treatment, as many people know, is extremely taxing. It's quite isolating. It's an intense experience for everyone involved. And also no one really talks about sex, bizarrely, when it comes to the fertility experience. We also have, you know, a lot of expectant parents who are not prepared for the changes in sexual desire and functioning, you know, hormonal changes, physical discomfort, emotional shifts, all the things that happen that can impact on your sex life. And I think that if we can have more education around these potential changes, then that can help a lot of people manage their expectations and also maintain intimacy in ways that feel really comfortable and, you know, fun and pleasurable and not pressure-filled too. We also talk about safety and comfort, and, you know, I really like to give detailed guidance on how to safely engage in intimacy during pregnancy too. You know, maybe some positions that are more comfortable. Maybe we also talk about things like fears. Like, we talk a lot about excitement, but we don't talk about fears and frustrations and challenges that come with pregnancy for all parties involved, hormonal changes for all parties. I also obviously focus a lot on communication when it comes to this time too, and making sure that we are having effective communication and talking about intimacy, consent, you know, mutual satisfaction. And then the postpartum sexuality is a huge, huge topic that doesn't get spoken about enough. And look, you know, I see people in my clinic. I've just finished writing a course on antenatal sexuality, because I know for every person that comes to see me in my clinic, there are thousands more with the exact same question.
Yeah.
And, you know, I talk a lot about, I guess, a comprehensive understanding of how pregnancy may affect your sex life.
How great. Oh, good. I really want to have a look at that.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah.
Published.
Yeah.
Finished filming all the content, but I'm almost done.
Oh, no, it's a big job. So we've actually got a pregnancy program as well. I think that would dovetail really beautifully with that. I want to explore the concept of self-esteem and what that has to do with our sexual pleasure, and does that change through pregnancy and postpartum?
Whoa. Well, I mean, if we talk about self-esteem and sexuality and pleasure in general, they're very interconnected. And I don't think many people kind of realize what self-esteem means to them, because we get taught so much about how we should look or should behave or, should feel, but we actually don't often take time or have the means to reflect on our own individual circumstances and how they relate to sexuality. So if we talk about self-esteem, it's really about understanding what that means in a sexual context. I do have a sexual self-esteem guide as well, which has been really, really helpful for a lot of people and probably my most popular online course to date. And we explore how self-esteem can influence sexual experiences, and how if you have higher self-esteem and you feel comfortable with your body and you feel comfortable with who you are, it can lead to greater openness and enjoyment of sexual activities. Whilst on the other hand, if you do have lower self-esteem, that can lead to anxieties and inhibitions. It can, maybe repress your sexuality and pleasure and satisfaction as well. And I believe mainly in empowerment through knowledge. So pleasure and self-esteem can be empowered through understanding a lot more about who you are, your body, your anatomy of your sexual partners, understanding what brings pleasure is really important and crucial. But as you said before, most programs on sex ed are primarily focused on reproduction rather than the diversity of sexual pleasure too. When we come to self-esteem in pregnancy, wow, there's so much to unpack there. It's the body changes, it's sexual myths and cultural stigmas, there's discussions around virginity there's performance, there's ideal body standards, there's consent, pleasure, and the fact that every single day is going to be completely different than the last. And what you like one day might be different to what you like the next day. So there's a huge amount to be discussed there. But again, it comes back to, are you able to actually feel safe enough to talk about that with your partner? But primarily, can you feel safe enough in yourself to even think about these topics too? Because it is quite daunting, especially if you've grown up with sexuality being a bit more taboo.
Well, do you think people are able with that perhaps have got something happening in their sex life that they're not happy with, but can't identify it as a self-esteem issue? What are there sort of symptoms or things that they do which would make you as a sexologist go, well, the root cause might be self-esteem issues?
You're listening to The Kick with Dr. Pat and Brigid.
How many times have you Googled something about your pregnancy?
When I was pregnant all the time, Dr. Pat.
Yeah, we get it. You may be confused or overwhelmed. It's normal to want information, but where's the reliable stuff from experts?
Yeah. Now, if you like our podcast, Dr. Pat and I have developed an online program to help guide you through whatever stage of pregnancy you're at.
It's taken us literally 2 years to put it together.
2 long, hard years, wasn't it?
But, it is a game changer in how pregnancy information is given.
Now, how it works is you get to sign up at whatever stage of pregnancy you're at. So you could be pre-pregnant, in your very early stages of pregnancy, late pregnancy, preparing for birth, or maybe you've just brought your baby home. And you get lots of information around that. And then you also get to join our closed Facebook group.
We've called in all our contacts too. So we've got a dietitian, anaesthetist, physiotherapist.
Sonographer.
Yeah, who else? Pediatric nurse, obstetrician, mother of 4.
Oh, just all the people you need to hear from.
So if that's you, come and join us at www.growmybaby.com.au.
Look, it is difficult to do it without the help of someone there, because sex is so multifaceted. We really have to look at things from a biopsychosocial and, interpersonal perspective and look at underlying causes. So it's not just self-esteem. We have to look at physical health. So, are there any things that could be impacting on sexual functioning? So hormonal imbalances, chronic illnesses, disabilities, medications that impact on libido, performance, physiological issues, like erectile dysfunction or vaginismus, which is painful, a type of painful sex, or vaginal dryness. There's also the psychological side of things where we're looking at anxiety, depression, stress, trauma, all the things that is going on inside your brain that might be impacting on your sexuality. There's the relationship dynamic. So is there unresolved conflict there? Is it poor communication? Is there a mismatch in sexual desire, which is completely normal for every single person and most couples? Is there a lack of intimacy that can lead to sexual difficulties as well? And then there's also things like sexual knowledge and education, especially for a lot of people, they might have gone to see a medical professional who, I know in medical school you don't really get sex education there either. So for those who are seeing their doctors are really just going with what they know, and they're also their own internal biases as well. There's the lifestyle factors that are involved: diet, exercise, alcohol, smoking, drugs, anything that can come in from a lifestyle factor. Stress is the main lifestyle factor that we have to focus on, because they really don't mix very well. If we talk about sexual self-esteem and body image, if you are having difficulties there, that can lead to barriers to creating a fulfilling sex life. And we have to work a lot on self-acceptance and exploring ways to feel comfortable and confident in your own sexual identity as well. And then just exploring fun and pleasure and desires and preferences. I think a lot of the time sexual problems come from not fully understanding or communicating your own desires. So taking the time to explore your own sexual preferences and discussing these with your partner can open up a whole new realm of pleasure and intimacy.
Yeah, I can't agree more. That is just such great advice. I want to talk about something that's fun, and that is for some women, they have an increased libido during pregnancy. Why does that happen?
I think your partner would probably be better at explaining this than I do. But I think when it comes to pregnancy, it is so individualized, and hormone fluctuations are a huge thing. And when it comes to pregnancy, we have to remember that it is a journey, and some people might feel really horrible on their pregnancy journey and some might feel really great. But if we look at sexuality, we look at hormonal changes as well, because we might, we see increases in estrogen and progesterone, and these changes can enhance blood flow to the pelvic region as well, which can increase sexual sensitivity and arousal, and that can heighten desire and bring on more intense pleasure and more intense orgasms. There might also be the fact that there is emotional bonding during this time. When you're pregnant, there can be a deeper bond between partners as they anticipate the arrival of their child, and that can bring on intimacy, which then can translate into sexual desire. Body image, for some people, pregnancy can make them feel less comfortable, but for others, they might feel more feminine and more sexual or more confident in who they are, and this can lead to boosted confidence in the bedroom as well. There might be also that the I guess reduced anxiety around contraception. So now that you're pregnant, you don't have to worry that much about unintended pregnancies because you're already there. So some people might feel like they can relax and enjoy sex more freely. And then, you can be a little bit more creative, I think, as well during pregnancy. So as the body changes, you might try different forms of intimacy, different positions as well, and this could all lead to new sexual experiences and pleasure.
I had a feeling that for once I didn't have to suck my tummy in. So, if you're talking about self-esteem, I know I had a belly, so that was normal, and that was my normal part of my belly, my body at that time of my pregnancy. So, for me, that was one thing that gave me more confidence, I think. It's multifactorial.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. I want to move on to postpartum relationships, and I think it's where we hear the most feedback. We hear people say, I just feel like I've been giving all day, and the last thing I want to do is give more to my partner in terms of sex. Or, I just feel touched out. I've had a little person on me all day, and the thing that I want most is a big person cuddle. Or, you know, there's just so many things that are going...
Or time out.
Or just time out. Or, you know, the most intimate thing that my partner could do for me right now is put the baby to bed or do the dishes or, you know, those sort of things where the narrative is a little bit of feeling put upon. We briefly touched on consent earlier, but does consent change with your intimate partner after having a baby?
Absolutely. Consent changes at any stage of a relationship, you know, and I think actually the times that I see challenges with consent are usually in long-term relationships, or a partner might feel like they have the authority to do whatever they like because they know their partner so well, and so they don't ask their partner. And that can lead to, you know, some really uncomfortable, if not distressing situations sometimes. I think consent and intimacy after the arrival of a baby involves adjusting to new dynamics and understanding the evolving needs of both partners as well. It's not just the pregnant partner, it is the other parents too, and what's happening for them, because a lot of attention goes towards the parent, the birthing parent and the baby, and then the other partner might feel forgotten a lot of the time. You know, I think communication is really, really important when navigating postpartum intimacy. So both of you discussing your feelings and your desires and any apprehensions that you have around sexual activity. You need to talk about what's comfortable and what's not, you know, emotionally and physically as well. And I think you need to understand consent very, very well. You know, making sure that it's ongoing, that it's explicit, that you're checking in with each other. There needs to be a huge amount of patience and empathy. You know, both partners need to show patience towards each other. You know, the non-birthing partner needs to understand the physical and emotional recovery that is involved, and the birthing partner needs to acknowledge the emotional and psychological adjustments that the other person is experiencing too. And I think we just have to remember that intimacy isn't just about like sex. It's not just about sex. It's not just about penetration. It is about closeness. It's about affection, shared experiences. And I think that, you know, partners can focus on rebuilding intimacy by spending very good quality time together, engaging in a lot of physical touch that is safe and not necessarily sexual and not necessarily leading to anything sexual. So hugging, holding hands, supporting each other in your new roles. And then, of course, being flexible. You know, there's a lot of physical changes that happen. There can be pain during sex, can be hormonal imbalances, there can be concerns about contraception, family planning, there can be boundary challenges. And, you know, I think if you can work with your partner on fostering an environment of understanding, communication, and respect, then you can definitely give it a good crack at navigating the challenges of intimacy after a baby.
Can we workshop some practical examples of intimacy that isn't sex? Just so people, our listeners, have got something to go, okay, well, tonight I'm going to try Chantelle's formula, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, of being intimate with my partner. What are some of those things that they could do?
We can start with just taking a pause and a bit of a breather. You know, don't try and have these conversations when you're running around, when you're exhausted, when you're, you know, reaching for, you know, a bottle or a baby or doing the washing. I think that there are so many ways that you can build intimacy and maintain that close connection. We can start with emotional sharing, so taking the time quietly to share thoughts, feelings, experiences, open communication. All of that can lead to a deeper bond and make both partners feel seen and heard. Physical touch, such as cuddling, holding hands, hugging, or simply sitting really close to each other, watching a movie, that can enhance feelings of intimacy. Dedicating time to each other without distractions. So, you know, cooking together, going for walks, acts of service. So doing something thoughtful for your partner, like taking over a chore that they dislike, or bringing them breakfast in bed, or just, you know, showing love and, you know, affirmation and appreciation for what they're doing for you as well. I think that affirmation is a huge one. So, you know, this does tie into Gary Chapman's love languages. So you do your love languages quiz online, you find out my love language, the language I need to feel loved, might be affirmation. So I'm going to tell my partner that if they give me a lot of affirmation, it's going to make it easier for me to open up for them. And I'm going to find out what their love language is so I can give them more of what they need to feel loved. And that can be things like, if it is affirmation, it can be giving compliments, appreciation, acknowledging your partner's efforts in the relationship, anything to make them feel valued and loved. And then, active listening is a really powerful one. So giving your full attention and support to your partner as they speak about their day or share personal thoughts or struggles. Spiritual connection is a huge one. It might be for some people, if they do share a spiritual bond, or if they are involved in spirituality, it might be meditation or prayer or services. And then I think just like learning together, taking a class, doing a workshop together, reading the same book, learning something that you have in common so that you can strengthen your connection through shared knowledge. So you don't feel like you're always having to explain a certain thing or talk about something that your partner's not interested in. Pick a topic that you both like and learn it together.
Which may not necessarily be your baby. That might be the other thing.
You need to do something apart from your baby, because remember that baby's going to grow up and move out one day, and you still need to have a connection afterwards.
Yeah, we always say
or
that.
Not.
Yeah, or not. That's fine too. Like, that might be the journey that you had at that time. But yeah, Pat and I always say that the first relationship is the relationship between the couple. And then we, that's the focus. We do try to have a date night, and it doesn't really happen when people work so many hours, including myself and Pat. But that creating the intimacy is such a great first step into whatever that might lead to. But what if you have a partner that perhaps doesn't come to the table, that you find it very hard to say, look, there's a disconnect between 1 + 1 = sex where you're not giving me the thing that I need, which is this building of the intimacy for us to then have a fulfilling sex life. The partner may not need that level of intimacy to then also want sex, whereas the birthing parent might need both, the intimacy from both partners to get to the point where they feel comfortable having sex.
Yeah, I mean, when one partner is unwilling or unable to engage in building intimacy, it can be very challenging for a relationship, especially during this time after or during pregnancy, before pregnancy, during pregnancy, after birth as well. Like, these are huge steps to consider. And I think that it can be challenging all around. The whole journey can be so difficult, and for some people it will ruin their sex life. I'm not gonna be unrealistic here. It doesn't work for every single person, and I think that if there is difficulty with building intimacy, you need to understand the reasons why, and not focus on blame, but focus on understanding. So why is your partner reluctant or unable to participate in building that intimacy? They could be dealing with personal issues. They could be stressed. They could be past traumas that are affecting their ability to connect. And sometimes you might be able to talk about this. Sometimes you might have to figure that out. Sometimes you won't be able to figure that out. And I think especially for, masculine people as well, there is such a challenge in talking about emotions. And it can make it very, very difficult to connect with that person and also understand, how are they going? Like, are they going okay? Or is it a challenging time for them? If you can clearly communicate about your feelings and your needs without like placing blame and using I statements. So, I feel disconnected at the moment, and, I would really love to do some work together and take some small steps to try and to get closer. I don't want to move away from you. I don't want us to, wander too far from each other. I think we need to, make sure that we come together. And I think expressing in that way is a really good way to prevent your partner from feeling attacked and making them feel more open to discussion. There's always professional help. I mean, there is a reason why I have a career, and that's because sex is very, very difficult to talk about, and the hardest person to talk about it with is your partner. I think that therapy can help uncover deeper issues that impact on the relationship. And, my job, and I'll say it like I don't want to be seeing people forever. I'm pretty good at my job and pretty good at being straightforward with going, hey, this is what we need to work on. People who have got a young family or who are going through pregnancy, they don't have a lot of time to be going into therapy a lot. They need to have practical, easy solutions to help bring them back together. And so my job is to help set realistic expectations about the process of building intimacy. Change does take time, especially when there are emotional or psychological barriers that are involved. And I really like to focus on accountability and self-growth because whilst you're working on the relationship, you have to focus on your own emotional and mental well-being, and you have to take accountability for your role in what's happening in the relationship and consider the future of the relationship. Because, if despite your efforts, your partner remains disengaged, you need to think about, okay, what are we going to do here? Can I live with this? What are your needs in the relationship, and what might be the best path moving forward for your own personal well-being?
And that could be just time. Your emotions change so much after having a baby. Then a couple of years go by or whatever. Like it's a wave. So I don't think anybody needs to make big rash decisions about their partner if they're not feeling satisfied, but it's just patience and learning about what that person needs. And I love that statement that you said, that you don't want to wander too far away from your partner. Like, that would be a really powerful thing, I think, to say to your partner if you felt disconnected. And I also love the idea of both people being accountable and knowing what accountable looks like. I think that's really important. I want to ask, we talked briefly about mismatched libido. How do you manage that? If you've got a partner or you're the partner that has a highly charged libido and your partner or yourself, you don't, that puts a lot of pressure on the relationship. How do you manage that?
I think at every stage of the relationship, one partner will have a higher libido and one partner will have a lower libido. And it's like a roller coaster, right? Like you're together for a long time. It might be me 1 month, it might be you the next month. It really depends on what's happening, in your life. But you have to start with open communication and really say like, hey, I'm just actually not feeling that great or not that horny at the moment, and not blaming or shaming the other person, but just I think giving a bit of the 411 on what's going on for you personally is really, really healthy, and then definitely going to get a medical evaluation, so making sure that everything is going well from a hormonal, medication and health perspective as well. I think as well, if you kind of walk away from a session with a medical professional and go, I don't know if I got the answers that I need there, you can always go to another one, or, come see someone like myself that can also refer you to people who do have a well-rounded, understanding of sexuality and how it can be impacted. Lifestyle adjustments, if you can decrease your stress, I mean, gosh, wouldn't we all like to do that? It's very, very hard though.
But the one thing that might decrease your stress is to have sex. So,
yeah, maybe, or it might make it worse. If you're too stressed and it's bad sex, then it's not going to work. Lack of sleep, poor diet, lack of exercise. Making sure that you're working together on lifestyle improvement. I think counseling or therapy is really, really great, and investing in that could save a relationship. Sometimes people look at it and go, oh gosh, it's so expensive. But I go, this is your life. Like, this is your life. And if you keep pushing it back, then actually it's more expensive for you because you're going to get more stress. You're going to feel more disconnected. Divorce is very expensive as well, by the way.
That's what I was just going to say. Divorce is also expensive.
So focus on that. Be flexible. Be patient with each other. mismatched libido doesn't have to be a deal breaker if both partners are willing to work on the issue together. Try and schedule intimacy. Planning intimate encounters can help the lower libido partner prepare as well emotionally, and that can make sex more enjoyable for both of them. It doesn't make sex less romantic or spontaneous, but it can really make sure that all parties are considered.
I'm curious, when somebody comes to see you as a sexologist, obviously we've talked a lot about like the psychological aspect. Do you also teach them different ways to have sex that might be more enjoyable?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. That's a huge part of what I do, because if you think about it, we all kind of have we've got our menu. We've got our menu that works, right? Like you go, okay, like I know that I don't like the word foreplay because I think it's like saying that there's something before
after
the main act, which is, people think sex is about penetration, but sex is like an umbrella term for lots of different things that you can do. But you have your menu, and it's like you and we're going to go out for dinner together, and I go, why don't we go to this Italian restaurant around the corner here, and for entree, we're going to get some garlic bread, and then we're going to have pasta for main, and then for dessert, we're going to have tiramisu, and on the side, we might have Aperol spritz or something. And you go, yes, I love that. Great idea. We have a great time. And then I go, you know what? Let's go out again. Let's go to that restaurant that we liked. Yeah. Let's get garlic bread, pasta, tiramisu, and an Aperol spritz. And you go, yeah, love it. That was fun last time. Let's do that. And then the third time I say, let's do that again. And you're like,
okay, I'm bored now.
Yeah, exactly. I'm kind of bored. So like you need to think about like mixing up the menu. And in my book, I have this huge list. I have an even more comprehensive one for people that come to the clinic. But in my book, I have this list of like sexual activities that you can do together. It's a yes, no, maybe list, right? The things that are a hard yes, I like that. We can talk about it. Check in with me still, because if I want to do that today, but I'm into that. There's a maybe, which is kind of like the amber light when you're driving. It's a could go forward, could not go forward. It's a not sure about, but it could be yes or it could be a no. And then there's the no, the hard red. We're not doing that. Brakes are on. It's off the table. So I think working on a yes, no, maybe list and having that there, and then just pulling that out once in a while and going, is there anything here that I want to actually try now? That might have been on the maybe list, or if I've become more flexible on anything here, or would I like to do yes of what's on the green list?
I love that. I'm going to, I have got your book. I think I bought the book when you had the first cover.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So I've got that book, and I haven't got to that bit. So yes, I'll definitely go and have a look at that. And I could imagine that is incredibly important for not just parents of a new baby, but people in a long-term relationship that are potentially trying to get pregnant or whatever, like just to keep that desire there.
Anyone needs that list, because you might figure out a few new things that you didn't even know existed,
or have the opportunity to talk to your partner about. I think having it in a book, it's sort of legitimate. Look, it says here in the book, this is an option to try, which brings me to the point about fantasy and kink. How important is that, and how many people engage in fantasy and kink in their sex life?
Look, fantasy is extremely important for anyone. It can play huge roles in enhancing sexual experiences and satisfaction. And, as long as they're explored consensually, and respectfully, then, these can be extremely amazing, enhancing things to bring into your romantic, intimate, sexual, erotic lives, It's talking about a story, a place that you can go in your mind. It's about sharing something that can be exciting and different, and sharing personal fantasies can really deepen emotional intimacy. It can show vulnerability and trust as, partners allow each other into their intimate world. It can share vulnerability. It can lead to more personal fulfillment and exploration. And create mutual understanding and trust so that all partners can express their needs and boundaries clearly as well. It can be really also like a stress relief and fun, and it can be a little bit silly. You know, life's so serious. You can hear it in my voice. Like this
so
is
serious.
It's such a serious topic, but like
I know.
it can actually like
I want to have
a
fun.
lot of
Yeah,
fun and pleasure. Yeah. We want to be unique. We want to have imagination there. And I think a lot of the time people yuck other people's yums, you know, like we might go, oh, why would someone want to do that?
Yeah.
And that can be so judgmental, and we actually don't know what other people are doing behind closed doors. So we have to be very mindful of how we talk about sexuality in, our friendship circles, in open environments, because I'm telling you right now, a lot of people are into some freaky stuff, and I love it, and I think it's great, but they probably won't share with you if you're going to be,
they feel judged.
If they can hear judgment.
Yeah. No, exactly. So if someone had a sexual fantasy or kink that they wanted to explore with their partner, what's the best way to go about that?
I think that if you think about your kink or your fantasy, you have to think, do I completely understand it before I share this with someone? You know, am I going to be able to explain this in the best way for them? So it can deepen intimacy, but it can be intimidating as well. And it can feel intimidating to bring it up, and it can feel intimidating to receive that information, especially if you don't know what it means. So choose the right time and place. Find a comfortable private setting where you won't be interrupted. Make sure you're relaxed. Make sure you're open-minded, and you have some time and space afterwards to decompress. Start with open communication. So saying, I want to talk about something that I'm interested in sexually. It's a little bit different, and I want you to just listen and hear me out, and I'll answer any questions that I have, that you have, with the best of my abilities. Use a lot of positive and affirmative language. So, focus on your desires and what you find exciting. Avoid framing things in a way that might make your partner feel inadequate or left out, and share gradually. I think if you're worried about how your partner's going to react, start by sharing a mild fantasy or kink and gauge their reaction and build comfort levels from there. Encourage your partner to be open with you as well. Make the conversation feel balanced and reassure them that it's a safe space. And react supportingly, because regardless of your personal feelings about the fantasies that you have or that your partner has, you always have to be open and be able to talk without judgment there, because supportive reactions encourage more open communication as well. You can then educate yourselves together and be patient and receptive towards each other. Always follow up after the initial conversation. Make sure that you check in with your partner and discuss any thoughts or feelings they may have had after you've had that discussion.
Just don't open up a big box of bondage gear as an introduction.
Well, yeah.
That might go well or not. I get it. Just a gradual introduction. This has been such a great chat, Chantelle, and I know we haven't really even touched the surface. If you wanted to leave something for our listeners, what would be some top sort of tips? Somebody that's struggling through their postpartum time with their sex life and their sexuality.
Oh, be kind to yourself, first and foremost. Be kind to your partner. Reach out for help. Be curious as well about the experience. Go slowly. And I think also just make sure that you are open to discussion in a non-judgmental way. And if you need to see a therapist, then absolutely do so. One therapy session can cure a huge amount of stress and anxiety and can help pave the way for better conversations moving forward.
A lot of people struggle to know that it's normal, I think, too.
Oh, it's so normal. Oh my God, we all have sexual problems.
Yes.
Every single person will.
There's also a broad spectrum of normal. We like to say that a lot. So,
yeah, absolutely.
This has been great. Thank you so much for your time, Chantelle.
Thanks for having me. I've enjoyed being here.
All right, everyone, that's us for this week. We'll see you next week, and thank you so much for listening. If people want to get hold of you, Chantelle, what's the best way?
So you can find me at www.chantelle, Chantelle, Otten, OTTEN.com, and you can find me social media on there, which is Chantelle_Otten_Sexologist. If you do want to learn more about your love languages, you literally just have to Google love languages and it'll come up with the website by Gary Chapman.
I'll put those links in the show notes as well. All right. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much.
Bye for now.